Behind the polished doors of sprawling plantation mansions, dim candlelight flickered across ornate furniture, casting long, uneasy shadows across floors where history refused to tread. The stories we know of slavery speak of labor, chains, and brutal punishments. But some crimes were hidden, locked away from public view, wielded in secret over the most intimate parts of human life. Enslaved men and women moved through hallways in silence, their every step measured by fear, their voices muffled by obedience, their bodies constrained not just by bondage, but by the secret authority of white mistresses who controlled the very essence of their sexual lives. What did these women do when no one was watching? And how did those subjected to their power endure abuses that history refused to record? These were acts that were nasty, filthy, and unspoken, yet they shaped the lives, identities, and souls of countless individuals. The plantation was not only a site of labor exploitation, it was a stage for domination, secrecy, and violation. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the American South was dotted with plantations that symbolized wealth, refinement, and the cruel spectacle of human ownership. Grand mansions, with their wide verandas, white columns, and sparkling floors, were juxtaposed against cramped, rotting quarters where enslaved men and women lived in constant fear of punishment and surveillance. Within these houses, white mistresses occupied a unique sphere of power. Outwardly, they were refined figures of elegance, entrusted with domestic authority. Privately, some exploited their positions in ways that were deliberately hidden, orchestrating sexual control, enforcing obedience, and manipulating those who could not resist. Behind every polished door and heavy curtain, secrets of abuse waited, secrets too dark, too intimate, and too deliberate for polite histories to ever reveal. The plantation system was more than chains and crops. It was a meticulously structured machine of control, where gender, race, and hierarchy intertwined to enforce submission. Enslaved men and women were trapped in a world where survival depended on compliance, and where the authority of white mistresses could be as absolute as that of plantation owners. Fear was not merely a tool of discipline, it was the currency of secrecy. Through coercion, manipulation, threats, and isolation, these women exercised power over bodies, desires, and choices. Obedience was survival, but compliance exacted a psychological toll that would linger for generations. Control over sexual lives was not incidental, it was a hidden, pervasive extension of the system's cruelty. But how far did this control reach, and what did it cost those whose bodies were not their own? Behind closed doors, in attics, kitchens, guest rooms, and private bedrooms, sexual exploitation took form. Oral histories, letters, and plantation records whisper of acts of coercion, intimidation, and manipulation for pleasure, committed in spaces where no male oversight existed. Enslaved men and women were trapped, their lives dictated not only by labor but by the capricious will of those entrusted with authority. Privacy became a weapon, intimacy became terror, and every interaction was measured against survival. These acts were invisible to outsiders, hidden from the eyes of society, and carefully erased from the public record. Yet, even in silence, these abuses left indelible marks, emotional, physical, and psychological, that could never be fully concealed. The human cost of hidden power was immense. Humiliation, fear, anxiety, and the erosion of dignity became daily companions. Physical exhaustion, injury, and sometimes forced pregnancies were the visible consequences, but the invisible wounds were deeper. The loss of autonomy, the disruption of families, and the shaping of identities under coercion. Long-term psychological scars reverberated across generations, altering perceptions of self-worth, masculinity, and trust. The plantation did not merely enslave bodies, it invaded the most intimate aspects of human life, leaving trauma that words cannot fully capture. And yet, these stories were deliberately erased, deemed unfit for record, inconvenient for a society that preferred the veneer of civility. For generations, the abuses inflicted by white mistresses remained unacknowledged, concealed by societal norms and the deliberate erasure of uncomfortable truths. Polite history refused to imagine that women could wield such intimate, destructive authority. Yet the evidence persisted: hidden diaries, letters tucked away in forgotten drawers, and oral histories preserved by descendants. Slowly, historians began to piece together the grim reality: coerced sexual experiences, psychological manipulation, and abuses of power that textbooks rarely, if ever, acknowledge. Positions once described as favored were revealed as tools of control, designed to isolate, intimidate, and dominate. The hidden truths of power confronted long-held myths, demanding that society acknowledge not only the existence of cruelty but its unexpected perpetrators. What happens when these private horrors are finally brought into the light? It forces recognition of both the victim's suffering and the pervasive, corrosive nature of unchecked authority. The revelation of these hidden crimes stunned scholars, communities, and descendants alike. Shock and disbelief rippled through academia as sanitized myths of white womanhood crumbled under the weight of historical evidence. Male victims, long ignored in narratives of slavery, were finally given a voice, their suffering acknowledged in the broader discourse of oppression. Families confronted the legacies of their ancestors, grappling with shame, complicity, and the unsettling realization that cruelty thrived where appearances suggested refinement. These stories force society to confront disturbing realities about gender, power, and race, reminding us that the veneer of civility often conceals the darkest human impulses. And yet, countless acts remain unspoken, secrets still lurking behind the walls of plantations, waiting for scrutiny to illuminate them. Isolation, privilege, and the unchecked authority of white mistresses created conditions ripe for abuse. Constrained in public by societal expectations yet empowered in private, some mistresses wielded their authority in ways that were calculated, deliberate, and psychologically devastating. Gender, race, and social hierarchy intersected to produce spaces where desire, frustration, and dominance intertwined, shaping abuses that were intimate, deliberate, and invisible to outsiders. Control became both a coping mechanism and an assertion of entitlement, a way to exercise power in a society that otherwise limited women. These acts were deliberate, disturbing, and unforgettable, exposing the dark potential of unaccountable authority. Understanding them does not excuse them, but it does reveal the complex dynamics of oppression within plantation households. Even amid the horror, acts of resilience and subtle resistance emerged. Enslaved men and women navigated these treacherous dynamics with ingenuity and courage, preserving fragments of dignity even under extreme duress. A glance, a carefully chosen word, a coded refusal, these small gestures became acts of defiance, assertions of humanity against a system designed to strip it away. Oral traditions, whispered stories, and family memories ensured that even when the details of abuse were hidden, the resilience and survival of the enslaved endured. Every act of survival was a quiet victory, a reclamation of self, and a testament to the strength required to endure what history preferred to ignore. The physical spaces themselves carried the weight of these secrets. Sunlight filtering through cracked shutters illuminates dust-filled halls, broken furniture, and abandoned rooms, bearing witness to acts of coercion, manipulation, and silent suffering. To honor these stories is to confront the full scope of slavery, not only the brutality of labor in chains, but the private, sexualized abuses hidden in plain sight. The walls of plantations kept their secrets for centuries, yet the truth persists. These are not abstract tales, they are lived realities, experiences that shape bodies, minds, and futures. By acknowledging and teaching these histories, we honor the victims and prevent the repetition of abuse, ensuring that the lessons of the past inform the conscience of the present. History holds the echoes of those silenced. The sexual lives of the enslaved were never entirely their own, shaped, controlled, and violated by the hidden power of white mistresses. These truths confront us with the uncomfortable reality of human cruelty, but also with the courage, endurance, and subtle defiance of those who survived. To deny them is to deny the essence of Black history, Black culture, and the hidden stories that illuminate the complex interplay of power, race, and gender. The plantation walls may have concealed these crimes for centuries, but history now demands that we see them, reckon with them, and ensure the voices of the silenced are heard. The shadows of mansions, the whispers of corridors, and the echoes of hidden chambers all speak to a past that is disturbing, unflinching, and essential to remember.